Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Inverness, Nairn, Badenoch and Starpsey for securing this important debate. Over a year ago, I set up the all-party parliamentary group for post-Brexit funding for nations, regions and local areas, with the aim of holding the government to account on their promises regarding the introduction of a shared prosperity fund that would replace EU funding in full. I'm afraid to report that in this past year, despite organisations across the country relying on information so that they can plan their 2021 budgets, the government has done absolutely nothing to make progress in the shape of that new fund. In November, we published our APPG report, which set out 18 questions that the government needed to answer. These questions were based on submissions from around 80 organisations from across our country. I won't name all 18, but the most pressing questions that were unanimously agreed on by all of those stakeholder organisations were the following. Firstly, that the UK Shared Prosperity Fund must comprise not a single penny less in real terms than the EU and UK funding streams that it replaces. Westminster must not use Brexit as an opportunity to shortchange the poorest parts of the United Kingdom. Equally, the UK government must not prevent local areas from having appropriate control over those funds. Secondly, this is not just about the money. There is a real fear that it will not only be a financial grab, but also a power grab, and that Westminster will use this opportunity to reduce funding for the areas that need it most, and to claw back powers that sit naturally with devolved administrations and other local areas. So these are very serious questions that need to be answered. Since November 2018, we have had positive and constructive meetings with the former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, the Secretary of State for Wales and the former Business Minister. But disappointingly, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have not yet been granted a meeting with the Minister who is in his place today with our APPG. But none of those that we spoke with were able to give us any cast-iron answers to the questions that I have just set out. So we are continuing to demand that the government guarantees not a penny less, not a power lost. A recent worrying development is also that the government is considering rolling the local growth fund for England in with the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. We know this only by rumour and leakages rather than by any clear or transparent statement, which is of course the standard modus operandi for this government. As it stands, our recent report shows that the UK government must find £1.8 billion per year to replace EU funding for the UK's poorest regions, but that figure will reach £4 billion per year if these two funds are rolled and merged together. The possibility of combining existing UK-managed funds with the UK SPF has led to real fears of double counting. There were already fears that funding for the UK SPF may fall short of the EU's projected 2021 to 2026 budget, given that three areas of the UK, Lincolnshire, South Yorkshire and Tees Valley and Durham, have now fallen into higher priority categories, which is of course a damning indictment of the utter failure of the economic policies of this government. They have gone into that higher priority category and would therefore receive more money in the next spending round than they each did between 2014 and 2020. That concern is of course now increased. I urge the government to reconsider whether merging an England-only fund with a UK-wide fund is a logical step, and to recognise that rolling the two funds together would inevitably create serious confusion and raise serious doubts about transparency. I would therefore be grateful if the Minister could address this in his summing up and specifically answer the question, will the SPF and the Local Growth Fund be rolled into one or not? We need clarity about when the SPF consultation will be published. This is an absolute priority. The great advantage of the current system is that, of course, it's data-driven and evidence-based, thus guarding against pork barrel politics. There's a real worry the SPF will become a politicised slush fund with a Conservative government using it to buy votes in marginal seats. I hope that the Minister's response today will reassure us that our constituencies will not therefore be left shortchanged by a sleight of hand in Westminster.